Good morning. 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, May the 6th, 2021. We want to welcome you to the Dallas Independent School District's STEM Environmental Education Center and virtual field trip. We want to say a very special welcome to Solar Prep for Girls from Dallas ISD and from Cesar Chavez from Dallas ISD. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoy the program. Most of all, we hope you learn from it. Teachers, if you're watching and you have not signed up, please do so. Go to www.county.cc/EEC register and sign up. That's just for our attendance records only. Program today will be structures and functions of plants and animals. During this virtual field trip, students will explore how structures and functions of plants and animals allow them to survive in a particular environment. It'll be divided into 4 parts: structures and functions of amphibians, structures and functions of birds, structures and functions of reptiles, and structures and functions of plants. You cannot verbally ask us a question, students, but you can go to www.county.cc/EEC /questions/answer and send us in your written questions pertaining to this program, and we will do our best to answer them during the program. If not, I'll send the answers to your teachers. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mr. Harry Monroe is going to tell you all about a critter called an amphibian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Monroe, and we're going to be looking at the characteristics of a very special group of animals that we call amphibians. And as we get into looking at and studying about amphibians, scientists have put animals and organisms into different groups according to their likenesses and their similarities. And a lot of that has to do with the structure of the organism or animal's body. Now, amphibians actually are my favorite group of animals, simply because they are very unique in their structure and their characteristics. Now, there are several well-known members that we know about in the amphibian group, and those are frogs, toads, salamanders, and newts. Well, our focus today is going to be on frogs and toads because I do have some live specimens that are going to assist me in showing you the characteristics or structures of that group of animals that we call amphibians. Now, while we're going through this presentation, there's a couple of questions that I want you to really be thinking about, simply because your teacher may ask you these questions later on. So these questions are these. Number 1, your teacher might ask you to describe name 2 structures that an amphibian has and be able to tell how that structure helps that amphibian survive in the environment in which it lives. Okay, remember that. The other question is this: why is water so important to amphibians? All right, let's get started. Well, amphibians are found all over the world, students, except for at the top part of our planet and at the very bottom of part of our planet where it's cold all the time. Because one characteristic of amphibians, guess what? They are cold-blooded. And what that means is that their blood inside their body is going to match the temperature of their surroundings. Now, cold-blooded also means ectothermic. That's a big word that you will probably encounter as you get into the upper grades. It actually means cold-blooded. Take, for example, if a frog's swimming in cold water, well, guess what? Inside that frog's body is going to match the temperature of the cold water that he's swimming in. And you know what else? That makes him very sensitive to seasonal changes. When winter comes, amphibians, if it gets real cold during that winter, they're going to go into a deep sleep. much like bears do when winter comes. They're going to go into a state of hibernation. They'll go to sleep while it's cold during the winter months. And then when it warms up or is consistently warm, which is indicating that it's spring, they will awaken and come back out and be active and start feeding. Now, there are 63 different kinds of amphibians found right here in Texas. And 42 of those different kinds of species are amphibians. Guess what? They are frogs and toads. And there are about 30 different kinds or 30 different species of salamanders. So we have a lot of amphibians right here in our state. Now, out here at the Environmental Ed Center around our ponds, there are two well-known members of the frog family, the bullfrog and the leopard frog. And then we do have a few toads around. Now, students, listen, another characteristic of an amphibian, they belong to a very large group of animals. In fact, let me say this way. The animal kingdom is actually split up into two big groups. One group we call the vertebrates, the other group we call invertebrates. Those animals that have a backbone, a skeletal structure inside their body, guess what? We call those vertebrates. Those that don't have a backbone or a skeletal structure inside their body, we call those invertebrates. Now, a perfect example of invertebrate would be a worm or a grasshopper or a spider, because they don't have that skeletal, the bony structure inside their body. Now, basically a frog does. I can show you a model skeleton of a frog right here. And if we look, we can see it does have a skeletal formation or structure. This point right here, this is considered to be the backbone. So frogs and toads are vertebrates. They do have a skeletal system within them. Now, listen, guys. What I like about amphibians, boy, they go through some changes in life. We call those changes in life stages of their life cycle, developmental cycle. You know, one of the processes that living things go through is growing. And I'm not talking about getting bigger or larger. They go through body changes. Now, when a frog is born, he's born from an egg, and they're born in water. Very important to them. The eggs are formed in water, and they hatch in water. And from that first stage after hatching, we get what we call a tadpole. This is a real live tadpole. And he's swimming. He has a tail just like a fish. I hope you guys can see that. Now, he's going to spend part of his life swimming around in that pond. And he's not going to stay just like that. He's going to, as he gets older, his body is going to go through developmental changes, stages in the life cycle of his life. Now, a little later on, the tadpole will start looking like this, and we can see that this tadpole has now developed legs. And you know what? Eventually that tail is going to get shorter and eventually disappear. And at that stage, when the tail disappears, it becomes what we call a froglet or an immature frog. And then from then on, he starts developing, getting bigger, and eventually becomes an adult. And he starts to look like this. This is an American bullfrog, guys. These are bullfrog tadpoles that I just showed you. Now this is Hoppy. Hoppy has, everything he probably needs to survive in that pond. He's pretty large, and he's been eating pretty good. You know, frogs eat insects, they eat worms, they eat little tiny fish, they eat snails, but basically they love to eat insects. So they're considered to be a carnivore, and the type of carnivore that Hoppy is, he is an insectivore. He loves insects. He has very strong legs that allow him to jump quite a ways or hop a long ways, and that's why I call him Hoppy. And if we look at his feet, this is another structure that he has. it gives him a wide platform to leap from. But more importantly, once he gets to this size, he's going to spend time around the edge of the pond, and he may have to go swimming after a small fish to eat. Now, if he has to go swimming, guess what that structure is going to also help him do? It's going to help him to swim, isn't it? Now, one thing about frogs, their skin has to be kept wet because simply their little bodies, they have a 3-chambered heart, and their lungs don't give them enough oxygen to survive. So they also use their skin to get oxygen. Their skin, when it's wet, is porous, meaning are permeable, meaning air can penetrate the skin. And so he gets a lot of his oxygen because of the wet skin allowing oxygen to come into the body. So if his skin was to dry out, guess what would happen to Hoppy? He would die. He would suffocate or go through asphyxiation. But that's Hoppy, and this is a male. And the female is the one that lays the eggs. Now, the eggs are going to be in a cluster. Do you guys know what they call a big group of frogs? They call them an army of frogs, okay? So that's Hoppy. He is an environmental indicator. When you have them around the pond, that shows that the water is healthy, because if it had pollutants or toxins in it, it would penetrate the skin and he would die from that. And if the air was bad, that would not be good either, because the toxins or the pollutants that are in the air would have an effect on his livelihood. Now, I've got the other well-known member that I have alive to show you, and it is a toad. This is a giant toad. And we can see that as you compare it with Hoppy, Hoppy has the big, strong, muscular legs. This toad has a very large body, and it's got little stubby legs. So do you think that this toad could hop as far as Hoppy? I doubt it. Hoppy could probably hop to anywhere from 6 to 8 feet. This toad probably could hop. Whoa, look out. What's that boy doing? I think he had a little accident, but I'm glad I didn't get any on me. You know, a lot of people are afraid when that does happen, they get warts from a toad or a frog urinating on you, but that doesn't happen. If you get a wart, that's because the virus is already in your skin. Whoop, there he goes again. But look, guys, see the difference? And the skin is real rough. Now, he's doing that because he's quite nervous, and that's a way that he defends himself. Makes you want to leave him alone. And I just put him back because I'm going to leave him alone. Listen, these animals are very important because primarily they love to eat insects. And if we look at the world population of living things, there are more bugs and insects than any other living thing. And we ought to be thankful for toads and frogs and salamanders, all those little critters that eat bugs and insects, because they keep bugs and insects under control. If it wasn't for them, maybe we would be overrun by insects and bugs, okay? Now, students, I've about run out of time, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gorman, and if any of you have any questions, I bet he can answer those for you. You guys have a good day today.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe and Hoppy. I don't think I've ever seen any toad diapers, Mr. Monroe, but that might be something you want to look into, or maybe invent. Might be a market for them there. We do have a couple of questions from our students. What is the official state amphibian of Texas? In 2009, the Texas toad was designated as the official amphibian of Texas. And what is the largest amphibian? The largest amphibian are the giant salamanders of China. They can grow more than 5 feet in length and weigh well over 100 pounds. Thank you again, Mr. Monroe. And now we're going to let Ms. Fuller tell us all about birds.
Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Mrs. Fuller. Welcome to my classroom. This is my lab assistant. Her name is Lauren Chicken. Lauren Chicken is a bird. And one of the very easy ways of figuring that out, birds have feathers. So the only group of animals that have feathers. And they use the feathers for a lot of different reasons. So let me put Lauren Chicken down. I do want to show you something she did. She's such a smart girl. She laid an egg. Isn't that wonderful? I'll talk to you about eggs in just a second. And she just flew away. And she took a poster with her. All right. So this is a flight feather. This is the kind of feather good old Lauren just used to fly off. And this is not from a chicken. This is from a different kind of bird. I want you to look at all the little filaments. Can you see that? I can pull them apart, but they'll go right back together if I smooth it down. And you may have seen birds smoothing their feathers. They're trying to make sure they're all locked together. This is how they can fly. They push with this kind of feather against the air, and it helps them gain momentum. So that's one kind of feather. The structure is the flight feather. The function is flight. Now, another one is called a contour feather. This is a contour feather. You see that? See how smooth it is? That lies against the body of the bird and makes the bird very aerodynamic or very smooth. So it slips through the airstream. So that's the structure is the contour feather. I'll show it up here so you can see it. And the function is to make the bird smooth. Now, a third kind, I really like this kind. This is called a down feather. The little filaments are not stuck to each other at all. They're all separate. And by being separate like that, it traps air against the body, and it keeps the bird warm. So the structure is the down, and the function is warmth. And then a last one we have, this is nice, you'll like this. Look at that, I'm gonna put it where the white place is where she knocked the poster over. This is a peacock feather, and the male peacock has this in his tail. He's got lots and lots and lots of them. And when he wants to impress someone, whether it's a female peahen or a person, or maybe even a predator, he'll spread all of these really long tail feathers out, and it'll make him look enormous. And this beautiful decoration in the middle makes it look like he's covered in eyes. So he can intimidate other animals by doing that. So the peacock feather is the structure, and the function is to intimidate and also to attract a mate. Okay, so that's feathers. And I told you I was going to talk about Lauren's egg. All birds are born from eggs. The structure is the egg. It's got a hard shell. I know you've seen them when your mother or father cook eggs in the morning. But the baby chicken, or whatever kind of bird it is, grows inside the egg. The egg provides a safe place for the baby to develop. So the structure is the egg, and the function is to act as a little caretaking packet for the baby to mature. Okay. And I'm going to show you one other thing. I've got a little PowerPoint I want to show you. We have a lot of this kind of bird out here. This is a turkey vulture. And this bird is a vertebrate. Mr. Monroe talked to you about vertebrates and how important the skeleton is for a bird. Here is an x-ray of the bird we just looked at. You can see the x-ray of the bones of the feet, of the leg, of the backbone, of the wings. Can you see all those bones in there? And looky there, there's the skull. Now I do have a replica, a model of a owl skull right here. It's against the law to own parts of birds of prey. So this one's not a real one. This one's made from resin. We bought this from a science company, and they poured some plastic stuff into a mold and made this. But you can see how big the eye is on the owl. And this is the skull. The brain of the bird is inside here. Birds have really sophisticated, well-developed brains. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you, and I'm going to go over these characteristics really quickly. And birds, structure and functions of birds. We have all three of these birds at the Environmental Center. Maybe you'll see them when you come next year. We have a mallard duck. This is a drake. This is the male. In the middle is a kestrel. This is the smallest bird of prey in Texas. And then on the right is an eastern bluebird. Now, here are some questions to think about as we go through. Name 2 characteristics of a bird. Well, I've already told you 3, so you're well on your way. Number 2, name a bird that only eats plants, name a bird that only eats meat or insects, and name a bird that eats both meat and insects and plants. So this is a picture from outside my classroom. I have a big blush rose. It's a very old rose bush. It's an old rose too. And right in the middle, I don't know if you can see, it's right down here. There is a cardinal nest, and the little mother comes in and feeds her little babies. And I wanted to show it to you so you could see how well it's camouflaged. If I didn't point that out to you, I don't even know if you could pick it out from the picture. Now, here's some characteristics of birds. Birds are warm-blooded. Their brains are sophisticated and can control their body temperature. Birds have feathers. Birds have beaks or bills. The structure is the beak or the bill. The function is the type of food, the ability to eat the food they eat. Number 4, birds lay eggs. We've already been over that. 5, birds are vertebrates. Now, birds that eat plants are called herbivores. Herb means plant, vor means eater. Here's a purple finch eating a seed, and a butterfly, a hummingbird drinking nectar from a flower. Birds that eat meat or insects are called carnivores. If they just eat insects, they're called insectivores. We have a kestrel and a great horned owl, and the kestrel eats insects and very, very small animals like lizards or tiny snakes, or maybe even a vole or a tiny mouse. The great horned owl can eat bigger things than that. Now, birds that eat plants and meat are called omnivores. Omni means everything or all. Vor means eater. The mockingbird on the left eats insects and worms and bugs, things like that. And when those are not plentiful, then he'll eat berries and other kind of plant material. In the middle, we have some corvids. These are, the one on the top is a crow and the one on the bottom is a raven. These birds are opportunistic eaters. That means they eat whatever they find. And if it's a baby bird or an egg or a bug or berries, they'll eat all of that, and they'll even eat carrion. And that's dead flesh, and roadkill's a good example of that. On the left, you see a turkey and a chicken, and they eat bugs, worms, and also vegetable material. Now, here's a feather challenge for you. Ask an adult for a feather and look at it with a hand lens. What do you see? Can you draw the feather? Well, depending on what kind of feather it is, it's going to look very different under the hand lens. And the last thing I have is a little tiny YouTube showing a mother and the father cardinal feeding their babies. So the babies, when they perceive the parent to be there, they reach up with their little necks and open their mouth really wide and make that little squeaky sound. And the parents start putting things in. Now the mother, she's the one that's that drab olive green. She's got a caterpillar, but it's too big. She can't stuff it down their throat. So she's kind of mashing around on it to make it more suitable for the little baby to eat it. So I'm going to stop this right here. I'm going to stop my share. And if you have any questions about birds, the structure and functions of their body parts, Dr. Gorman will be more than happy to help you with that. Thank you so much. Good day.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Very interesting. I'll have to admit that up until a couple of years ago, I kind of thought people would watch birds were maybe a little bit funny, but now I have a bird feeder in my backyard by my pool. And if I have a few minutes sometime in the afternoon, I love to sit out there and watch the different birds come into the feeder. They're quite colorful. It's really relaxing. You might want to put one outside the window at your classroom sometime. Now, we do have a couple of questions. So, what is the smallest bird in the world? The bee hummingbird. It weighs 2 grams at the most, and its length is 2 2/10 of an inch. It's about that big. And you know, the little sweet and low packages of that sugar substitute that you have in restaurants and stuff that your mom or dad puts in their coffee or their tea, those weigh 1 gram. So that little hummingbird, that little bee hummingbird, weighs as much as 2 of those little pink packages, and it's 2 2/10 of an inch long. Okay, now let's go the other way. What is the largest bird? The largest species of bird is the ostrich. Came from the plains of Africa and Arabia. A male ostrich can reach a height, now listen to this, 9 2/10 feet. That's 3 feet taller than I am. And it weighs over 344 pounds. And it is the largest living bird. Thank you again, Ms. Fuller, for that interesting program. And now Ms. Nash is going to introduce you to some scaly animals called reptiles.
Hello, welcome to my classroom. Today we're talking about our scaly friends, the reptiles. Now, reptiles are a very ancient group of animals. They've been on this planet a long, long time, since the time of the dinosaurs. They're members of the vertebrate group of animals. That means they have a backbone, even though sometimes people come and they say, I don't think that snake has any bones. Look how it moves. But really, look, they've got lots and lots of vertebrae, those backbone, tailbone right there, and the head. They don't have any legs or arm bones anymore, but they've got lots of bones. So they are all vertebrates, animals with a backbone. You can feel your backbone. Now, let's start with the turtle. The turtles are very, very ancient. They have been on the planet since the time of the dinosaurs. Oh dear, I forgot my towel. Oh well. Oh well. That's a little water. Now, I've got 2 common local turtles, a land turtle, the box turtle, and a water turtle, the slider. And they're different colors. Why do you think they're different colors? This one lives in the forest or the grassland, this one in the pond. So that green color helps them look like a green mossy log or green water. The brown color helps it camouflage in the dry leaves of the dead grass. Now, how about the feet? If this one would cooperate, we see that it has webbed feet for swimming. This turtle has feet for walking, okay, and digging. So different habitats, they look different. The shape is different. There's no streamline for swimming. This one just walks around, has a very strong shell, and can actually close its shell up tight like a box. This one can't do it anymore because she's too fat. But the very strong shell and a very good protection. So all turtles have a shell. That was their great idea. Okay. You served them well. Can you see how the bones, the backbone are attached to the shell? They can't take their shell on and off. This turtle died. So it's really part of the skeleton. Sea turtle would be even more streamlined for swimming all the time, basically, except when they come ashore to lay eggs. It's the only time they come on shore. They can't even walk anymore on land. They have to drag themselves up. And their front legs are like flippers. Pretty amazing adaptation. Now, another really ancient group of reptiles are the crocodilians, okay, the alligators and crocodiles. And we don't have any of those here as display animals. They would be very dangerous. But the crocodiles and alligators, interestingly enough, are the only reptiles that really take good care of their young. So mama crocodile makes a big tall nest made of grass and she guards her nest. Okay? And when the babies hatch, she takes them to a safe place, carries them in her big toothy mouth. Okay? Amazing animals. So we got the turtles and tortoises, that's one group. The alligators and crocodiles, that's another group. Then we have the tuatara, which only live in New Zealand, another ancient group, but we don't have one. Third group. The fourth group is lizards and snakes. They're one group. They're very closely related. Let's look at our friend, the leopard gecko. And he's very wiggly and he does not like to be held. But look at that spotted tail and those big eyes. This is a nocturnal insectivore of the deserts, okay? He does not like to be held. But they're very interesting animals. They have those little short legs crawling through the rocks. But now everyone's favorite reptile, of course, is our friend, red. Now, red is a corn snake or a rat snake, and we have them around here very commonly. We often find them in the chicken coop eating eggs. Okay? They can climb really well. We find them up in the trees sometimes, looking for birds' nests, I think. They also eat rats and mice and anything they can catch, really. But they are very interesting and beautiful. What's Red doing? He's sticking his tongue out. Do you know what he's doing with that tongue? If you said smelling, you'd be right. And you can see, which is eyes, feel, taste. But what about left out? Hearing. If you look at the head, there are no external ears. So he can't hear through the air the way we can. They can feel vibration through the ground. Now, red is a really beautiful animal. All snakes are predators. All snakes are carnivores. Lizards, a lot of them, some of them are omnivores, some of them are carnivores, some are even vegetarian, but not the snakes. The snakes all have to eat another animal. Now, they're so amazing. People are kind of afraid of them, but really, they're really amazing. But the weird thing about them, of course, is they don't have any legs. They also don't have any eyelids or external ears. What happened? So the scientists think is that they went underground, and underground legs got shorter and shorter until they disappeared. Eyelids got full of dirt, got rid of those. Ears got full of dirt, get rid of those. They came out from underground and they discovered they can climb trees and swim and do all kinds of things. But evolution never goes backwards, so the legs won't come back. So it's a problem. How do you kill something and then eat it if you don't have any legs to grab it or hold it down? So some snakes like red are what we call constrictor. That means they squeeze their prey until it's dead, suffocate it, and then they can eat it. Another group of snakes has done something really amazing. They have venom. Now, they can be dangerous and we need to be careful always, but it's actually not, they're not evil. They're just potentially dangerous. Now, but why do they have venom? Well, it's a good way to kill something if you don't have any legs or arms to grab it. So they bite it, it dies, they go and they find it and eat it. What is the deal? The rattlesnake has that rattle, and they will tell you if you're too close to them, and then you can go, uh-oh, stand still, look around, where is it? Be careful, don't step on it, don't pick it up. Another of our venomous snakes is the coral snake that you will hardly ever find, but they have that bright color, and again, that's a warning. That tells other animals, no, 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 don't bother me, you'll be sorry. So we have three kinds of pit vipers, the rattlesnake, the copperhead, and the water moccasin, and they're out there, but they're not evil. They're just animals. Now, another interesting thing to look for is maybe a snake skin. You might find one around and you can look at it. The scales were another great idea that snakes had. It keeps them from drying out. Like Mr. Monroe talked about how the amphibians dry out and also have to lay their eggs in water. Well, the reptiles have scales, they don't dry out, they lay their eggs on land. So they were able to conquer the land surface of the planet in a more complete way than the amphibians that are always tied to the water. You can see the scales over the eyes right there. Okay, pretty amazing. So they're really interesting animals to learn more about from computers or TV or books, or go to the Dallas Zoo has a great reptile collection. So hope you enjoy learning more about reptiles and amphibians. Remember, don't ever pick up any wild animal that you find in the woods or anywhere. Just observe it and leave it there. Okay. Thank you. And if you have any questions, Dr. Gorman will be glad to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Nash and Red. That's a very interesting program, especially about the venom. A lot of people think that snakes are poisonous, but Ms. Nash definitely pointed out that they are venomous, they're not poisonous. Okay, the question is, what is the official reptile of Texas? The Texas horned lizard became the official state reptile of Texas when Governor Ann Richards signed House Concurrent Resolution number 141 on June the 18th, 1993. Another question is, what is the largest reptile in the world alive today? It is the saltwater crocodile. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest crocodile species in the world and the largest living reptile in the world. The largest one was 22 feet long. And are there any saltwater crocodiles in America? Yes, there are a few down in South Florida. They estimate between 500 and 1,200 saltwater crocodiles in America. Thank you again, Ms. Nash. And now we're going to change directions completely and go away from animals and let Ms. Ramirez tell us all about plants.
Hello, my name is Ms. Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to be learning about plant parts. So before we start our PowerPoint presentation, I have a couple of things I want to show you. The first is this really pretty flower. It's called pink primrose, and of course it gets that name because of those pretty pink petals. But of course we are going to review some of the parts of a plant. So we have the flower. The flowers attach that nice green long stem, and attached to the stem are all those green leaves. And then of course we have the root. So be thinking about what is the function or job of each of these plant parts. And we're going to talk about that in our presentation later on. I also want to show you a couple of other things. So I was fascinated by roots because we typically don't see the roots because they're underground. So I'm going to show you a couple of different roots. So this one came from a dill. It unfortunately did not survive that winter, that freeze that we had back in February. But look at the stem of this herb and compare it to that skinny little primrose stem and also the root. So compare and contrast the differences between these two, and why do you think they're different? I also noticed this dill had some little root hairs attached to it as well. And then I found this cool looking thing. Look at the roots of this vine. So the roots here are kind of horizontal. So think about what would be the advantage of having a root system that is spread out horizontally. And this was super easy to pull out because the roots were so close to the surface of the dirt. So think about what would be the advantage of having horizontal roots that are all spread out like that, compared to having roots that just go deep into the ground. And then also I have another unfortunate plant that didn't survive that freeze. This is what was left of my rosemary plant, but look how expansive the root system is for this herb. So the roots are long and skinny, and there's a big ball or big mass of roots here as well. So I found it fascinating that roots come in all different shapes and sizes and textures. So think about why that is and what would be the advantage for each of those. And I will tell you for this one, the advantage of having roots that are so close to the surface and also all spread out is to help it gather and absorb as much water as it can during a rainfall. So they're going to be mostly like drought resistant. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Oh, before I do that though, I did want to show you one more thing, and that is a fruit. So we talked about the roots, the stem, leaves, and flowers. Some actually have fruits, and inside the fruit there are seeds. Now this is a crazy fruit that I found at the grocery store. This is dragon fruit, and I've never tried it before, but I saw it and I thought it was so pretty. So it's a bright pink color with these bright pops of yellow and green. And if you cut it open, the inside has the seeds, and it looks like this on the inside. Now I already ate the inside of this one, but that's what it would look like. And all I did was I just took a spoon and I just ate the inside out of it. and it tasted like a bland kiwi. So the next time you're at the grocery store, ask your parents if you can try a new fruit or veggie, because again, those come from plants. So I'm gonna share my screen this time, and we're gonna have a couple of questions for you guys. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to answer these two questions. The first is name 2 structures of a plant and explain how they function to help the plant survive. The second is, why are plant roots important? And here's a couple of pictures. Here's what that actual plant for the dragon fruit looks like. It's actually a cactus, and it's native to Mexico. But that cactus, they are well adapted to living in hot environments because it doesn't have the typical leaf that we think of. It has waxy leaves or cuticles, and that helps to keep in and prevent water loss. So that's the dragon fruit. And of course, we know it's important to study plants because we eat things from plants, but also our animal friends here at the Environmental Center also eat things from plants. And here's my bunny Mochi that you've probably seen in some other videos. And I found out that she loves to eat a lot of these different fruits and veggies. She was even caught in the act stealing some of my vegetables from another program. So she was munching on cilantro in that picture. So take a moment to observe this diagram, see if you can identify what kind of plant this is, but also see if you can identify any of these structures. And again, a structure is just a plant part. So see if you can identify these structures and also see if you can describe what the job or function is for each of these structures. And feel free to pause the video to allow students time to discuss and make their observations, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Hopefully you guys know that this is actually a tomato plant, and there are basically 2 main parts of a plant. We have what's called the root system, which of course encompasses the roots, and then we also have the shoot system, which is everything above the ground. So we're gonna start with the root system first, and the roots are very important because they absorb water and other nutrients from the ground. But they are also helping to anchor that plant in place so that it doesn't get blown away by the wind or so that it doesn't get washed away by water. So it's an anchor, and it also takes in water and nutrients. From the root, we have that stem. The stem is also important. It supports the plant. So it's keeping that plant nice and tall and straight so that it doesn't fall or wilt over. It also has another function. The stem is also helping to transport water and nutrients to other parts of the plant. Then, because this is a tomato plant, we have a fruit, and we know that the fruit is important because the fruit is going to house the seeds inside. So the fruit protects the seeds. And we know that seeds are important because we can actually take those seeds and we can plant them, and we will get more new plants. We also see that we have those leaves. The leaves are very important. Their job or function is to take in that sunlight, and they're using sunlight, air, and water to perform photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the process by which plants are able to make their own food using the sun, water, and air. So the leaves are important, they make the food. And then we have flowers, which are my favorite part because they're the prettiest. They help in reproduction. So they typically have the pollen. And I'll show you some examples of those in just a second. So here's a little video of a little garden area here at the center. And this is one of my favorite plants here. This is the lamb's ear, but look at those leaves. So plants have leaves, but not all leaves are the same. Leaves come in different sizes, shapes, and textures. And if you guys were here and able to touch that leaf, well, how do you think it would feel just by looking at this video? So I can tell you that it actually feels super soft, and the name of this plant is lamb's ear. It's a type of herb, and it gets that name lamb's ear because it feels soft like a baby lamb's ear. But what do you think the advantage of having kind of like hairy leaves? So the advantage of having hairy leaves is it's probably not going to taste really good. It's a deterrent. So animals probably aren't going to want a leaf that feels hairy. So would you want to put something that was hairy in your mouth? Probably not. So it's kind of a deterrent to prevent it from getting eaten. But it is a cool looking plant. I just like to touch it. It has an interesting texture. There's our pink primrose from earlier. And of course, we know a lot of our plants have flowers, and those flowers are brightly colored. to help attract pollinators like bees and butterflies. So there's a pretty purple iris, and you can see the pollen, that yellow powder on the inside. There's some catnip. So I have a lot of herbs because I like the smell of some of those. Some pretty flowers as well to attract those pollinators. The pollinators are going to the flowers to drink the nectar. And as they're drinking the nectar, they are inadvertently carrying pollen on their legs. And this is a cool looking vine that was growing on the wall. It kind of looks like someone just like glued it on the wall. But what do you think would be an adaptation for that vine? What is something that helps it to grow and stick on that wall? And then in our next little thing, I have a challenge. It's a plant structure scavenger hunt. So see if you can find 2 examples of each structure. So look for roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds, and compare why they are different. And you can go outside. You can even find examples of those parts in your very own kitchen. So that's a fun little scavenger hunt for you guys to do as well. So I'm going to, I will have one last thing. These are a couple of interesting structures for you guys to examine. So think of these structures. What might their function be? So here we have a unicorn plant, and it gets that name because when it's in this stage of its life cycle, it looks like it has kind of like the horn of a unicorn. However, as it goes through its life cycle, that pod will actually dry. And when it dries up, it cracks into 2 pieces and it looks like this. And it also gets the name Devil's Claw because as you're walking through a pasture, it might actually get stuck on your foot, or in the case of a cattle, on the stuck on a cow's foot. And it kind of looks like the devil's coming out to grab you. So that's how it also gets the name Devil's Claw. It's a very interesting seed pod. And then we also have the seed pods of a lotus and then the seed pods of a cocklebur. So think about how does having these structures help that seed disperse. So I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to show you some really quickly some examples of those. So here's the lotus pod, and this is the dried part. So when the flower itself dries, these little holes will get bigger and the seeds inside will fall out and they actually float. And so the water will carry them. Here's those cool looking cockleburs that we have all over the environmental center. So they have a hooked end to them, and that hook gets stuck on the animal's fur or on your pant legs and socks. And as we're walking, they will eventually fall off, and then those seed pods can break open and grow somewhere new. And then of course we have that cool devil's claw. So you can see this is the dried seed pod. And again, it'll get stuck on the cow's foot or on your foot. And as you're walking away, it can drop and then the seeds can disperse somewhere else. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. And then here's that plant that was growing on the wall. These have an interesting adaptation. It's that little part right there, and it's called a hold fast. So when I pulled it off my wall, I could almost feel like it tearing apart. So it has this little sticky adhesive right here, and that's a little adaptation that helps it adhere to the wall. So it was really weird when I was pulling that off. So that's all I have for you guys for the different plant parts and their structures. We're going to give it back to Dr. Gorman to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. We have 2 questions, 2 quick questions. What is the official plant of Texas? And it is the prickly pear. The prickly pear cactus was designated the official plant symbol of Texas in 1995. And now another question is, what is the largest plant in the world? The largest is the giant sequoia trees native to Sierra Nevada in California. It grows to an average height of 230 to 279 feet and 16 to 23 feet in diameter. Now, I have seen those trees. I've been out there. It's really hard to imagine something that large living, and they're just unbelievable. The tallest one recorded was 311 feet. And now I am going to share my screen. During this virtual field trip, students explored how structures and functions of plants and animals allow them to survive in a particular environment. It was a 4-part session, structures and functions of amphibians, birds, reptiles, and plants. Thank you, teachers. How did we do? If you would, go to www.tinyurl.com cc/EEC feedback. Send us back a quick form, it's a brief form that's in there ready for you to fill out. We would appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Have a great life. Thank you again for joining us.